Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I am going to be discussing something that is of serious importance. A video that is not a quiz or meme video. That's right everybody, I finally got some unique ideas. So that's why in today's video, I am going to be discussing my 3x3 anime. Now, this isn't technically my own idea, but this was kind of, I don't want to say created, but I was inspired to do this after watching the Trash Taste podcast. Trash Taste podcast is a podcast where three people talk about anime. Those three people are the Anime Man, Giguk, and Seadog VA, although 90% of the time they don't talk about anime, but in the one situation that they did, they were roasting each other's tastes. They looked through each other's mal accounts and they made a 3x3 anime, where I don't technically know what exactly a 3x3 is supposed to be, but essentially you just get 9 anime that you like and put it on a board and that's it. I got this blank template offline and I was able to get all 9 posters of anime by just looking online and putting it together in Paint. So essentially a 3x3 is just a grid where you can show off some of your favorite anime. And to me, I would say there are multiple ways you could do this. You could do this with anime that you absolutely love, but at the same time, at least in my situation, if I would do that, it would basically just be the top 9 anime that were on my list when I did my top 10 anime. Or was it top 20? I can't remember. But instead, what I decided to do for this was just pick 9 anime that mean something to me, whether it's good or bad, and taking another page from the Trash Taste podcast, I think it was Connor that had Mob Psycho, JoJo, all of these stereotypical normies type of stuff. Not gonna rag on Connor for that because they already did in the podcast, but I wanted mine to be a little bit unique. I could easily say, yeah, I like Mob Psycho 100, I like My Hero Academia, but everybody's gonna say that. That would just be what the Trash Taste podcast said in their own words. A list that somebody would send to them, try to get brownie points, try to make them feel like they actually have good taste. Which, if you're trying to tell somebody that you have good taste on a Trash Taste podcast, I'm not sure what you're doing with your life. But what I'm gonna do today is show off my list, go from top left down to the very bottom, and just go through each anime. So let's start, and here is my finished list. So at the very top left, which is where I'm starting, is Myriad Colors Phantom World. And this is one of the ones that I decided to include because of what they said on the Trash Taste podcast. Because, technically speaking, it is not a good anime from what I heard from a lot of people. It's not even the best from Kyoto Animation standards. But it's a cool concept. The opening is very catchy, and the whole little thing with Mai and that episode in the bridge just for some reason really got me. I'm not sure why. But the idea that Kyoto Animation made an anime about a group of high schoolers that are basically just Scooby-Doo, but anime-based. Because, the basic concept is they fight off these demons and send them back to their own world or whatever. Honestly, I don't remember much from the concept, but I know that the opening was super catchy, and that one scene that I already talked about. But that's really all I can say about it. It's got a pretty catchy opening. Now, going right is obviously Kaguya-sama Love is War. I know I wanted to make my list unique, but there's no heckin' way I could leave this one out. This show is so good. I would say it's my favorite comedy. Although, to be fair, that's even a hard case to make, because there are some other contenders that could really fight for the top spot. But with the 2 seasons that they have so far, able to develop characters like Kaguya, Shirogane, Ishigami especially, and then the always adorable Chika. I don't think I need to explain much with why Kaguya-sama's on my list. Instead, I'll take some of that time to explain some of the anime that are on here, which is probably questionable for a lot of people. But going right a little bit more, we got Hunter x Hunter. Now, when I made this, I wanted to have the full range of anime. I wanted to have, say, all the different genres. So obviously, action shonen, romance, harem, all the stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it would probably have to be Hunter x Hunter when going for action and shonen. I could easily make a case for Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but for as long as Hunter x Hunter was, and for how long it took me to watch, I remember coming home from work late at night just to watch a couple of episodes of it. And even though it's kind of a long show, it does well to develop the characters. Even some of the background characters, to be fair, especially ones that are in only one arc. But again, it's probably one of those shows that needs no explanation for why it's here. So I'll go down to the middle row at the very left and start with Konosuba. And for anybody noticing on this list, Konosuba is my isekai entry. For me, a lot of isekai anime are just kind of bog standard. They're always focusing on this guy that gets teleported to a new world, overpowered, but ends up getting a harem around him, all this usual crap. But none of them have really grabbed me as much as Konosuba. Because even though other isekai try to do comedy in a way, it just doesn't grab me like Konosuba does. The whole cast is a bunch of idiots that I absolutely love. Even now I'm tempted to go back and watch Konosuba dubbed because I only watched it subbed initially because there was no dub out. But from the clips I've seen, I want to go back and watch the dub, which isn't that often that I find myself wanting to rewatch an anime as much as Konosuba. And right smack dab in the middle of the list, which if you're playing bingo would probably be the free space, is Clannad. And I guess technically speaking Clannad After Story as well, but I'm grouping it all in one. Clannad is one of the first anime that I watched. I am pretty sure it wasn't my very first one. I think there was stuff like Baka and Test and My Hero Academia that I watched beforehand, but the story with Clannad was I was watching VFist back when he posted videos on YouTube a long time ago. He was doing the Clannad visual novel run-through on his YouTube channel. And since I knew him from work, I wanted to at least support him even though I didn't know much about the game. And we joked about like the stuff that he mentions in the episodes, like Sunahara just being Sunahara, and just kind of questionable things in the visual novel and stuff that he wants to interact with people watching the video about. And after I found out there was an anime about Clannad, I decided to watch it, and it broke me down. I think it's one of the first anime that literally made me cry. Although there have been some after that, it was the first one, especially considering my tie to watching the visual novel when VFist was playing it online. It was just a very wholesome experience. And going right, we have Quintessential Quintuplets, which might be the only one that's kind of questionable here. Because all the other ones, you could probably make a case because I've at least discussed them a little bit on my channel. But Quintuplets is one that I haven't really talked about much. But like I said before, I wanted to cover the entire spectrum, and harem is one of them. And where you can make a case that Konosuba is technically a harem, it's more isekai and more comedy to me. Quintessential Quintuplets is something that's kind of unique, but kind of standard at the same time. You even have the concept of quintuplets, where Uesugi has to tutor 5 girls that look exactly alike, and they all fall in love with him at one point. Okay, that's just kind of normal. But then you throw in the whole backstory about how one of them met him as a child, he fell in love with them. He doesn't know that one of those is one of the 5 girls right here. So then it just turns into a guessing game of which girl is it actually, although I think the manga is finished, so a lot of people probably know the answer. And even as an anime only, I could take a guess, but I'm not going to go there right now. Just the fact that even in the newer season, they give the girls some form of development. Like, especially with, what's her name? Nino, where she actually cuts her hair after telling Uesugi that she can't cut her hair by yourself or something like that. I can't remember the whole thing. And then you have Yotsuba, which her whole thing with the volleyball team, I think it's actually a soccer team. It's some sports team where she just can't say no to keeping on training for the big games, even though finals are coming up. That honestly just kind of spoke to me, because there are times that I just can't say no to people, even though I really should. And even though it can get obnoxious at times, it is still cool going in the comment sections of quintuplet videos and seeing people saying, I'm Team Ichika, I'm Team Miko, I'm Team Nino. There are probably some people that take it out of hand, but it's just cool to see that it's a harem where all the girls are part of one big family. And before I go any further to the next one, let me just say, Yotsuba is the best one. Don't at me. Except, if you watch it, let me know what your favorite is and why it is Yotsuba. Is it obvious that I like Yotsuba? But now moving to the bottom row, at the very left, we have New Game. Probably isn't a surprise, because the New Game opening 1 was in my top 10 anime openings way back in the day. Probably at least a couple of years ago. But just outside of that, it's cool to see a slice of life that actually revolves around adults. Because, if you notice, all the other ones, well, most of the other ones, involve characters that are under the age of 18. But most of the time with Slice of Life, it's about young girls in high school. And it's just cool to see that Doga Kobo went out of their way to make a slice of life about girls in an actual job. It's cool to see the sort of relatable scenarios that happen with that, especially the whole development, especially with Alba getting the job there and ending up working on one of her favorite game series. And Hifumi actually getting a place of authority, which as well she should, because she is the best character in that show. Maybe next to Alba. But out of all the anime that I watched from this list, I think New Game was the earliest one. Clannad might be a close second. But considering it's one of the first ones that I watched that I really connected with, is the main reason it's here. And right in the middle of the bottom row is Gakko Gurashi, or School Life. I'll refer to it as Gakko Gurashi because it sounds a little catchier to me. And this one is covering the horror genre. If you haven't seen it, then I might spoil something, but I'm hoping that a lot of people have seen it because it is a good show. Because at the same time, just from concept alone, you wouldn't think that 4 cute girls in an apocalypse would actually work for a concept of a show. Because you have inconsistencies like, how do the girls survive? And then other stuff that's just kind of up in the air and questionable. But for some reason, even though it's 4 cute girls trapped in a school, surrounded by, well, let's just call them spoilers, it actually works in a weird way. I think it means more to me because when I first watched the show and found out about the plot twist at the end of the first episode, I just couldn't continue watching it. I thought it was too scary. But I literally binged through it in like 2 days, and it's not bad. I think at the same time, I was just scared of anything revolving around any sort of horror, which is probably recognizable in a lot of these because a lot of them are super family friendly. Except for maybe Kaguya-sama because Chika brings out her wiener in that show. It'll make sense if you watch the show. But the fact that Gakko Gurashi is one of my only horror anime that I've actually managed to watch and legitimately enjoy is just a win for me because I don't do well with horror. And I know a lot of people are going to rag on how this first season ended. I personally think it makes sense, given the context of everything that was being built up. But let's finish it up with the very last anime, and to nobody's surprise, Laid Back Camp. It is my, I don't want to say my absolute favorite, because there are so many good anime, but obviously this means a lot to me, because I've gone on record before saying I just couldn't get into the very first episode until Nadeshiko popped up, then I was hooked. And then from there, it's just cute girls just chilling out by a campfire, making me feel all nice, warm, and fuzzy. it's just a good old time. There's no big plot going on, nobody needs to save the world or anything, but it's just fun and cozy. Just like a couple of other entries in here, I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain why Laid Back Camp is here. But that is my 3x3 anime. If you want to make one yourself, I highly encourage you to do so, because it was a lot of fun, especially to talk about all of these anime. I'm sure it won't be hard to find a blank template online because I was able to, and if you want to make one yourself, you can share it to me either on my Discord or my Twitter. Those are probably the two likely places that I'll see them. But in all honesty, this video was a lot of fun. A lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next episode. Momentai.